Hello, welcome to the interview here on France 24. Well, even if you know little else about Iran's nuclear standoff with the West, you probably know the basic script. The West accusing Iran of trying to build a nuclear weapon behind everyone's backs, and Iran insisting that any nuclear ambitions it may have are entirely peaceful. And all of this against a backdrop, of course, of ever tougher sanctions and threats from the West that it might take even harsher measures. Now, my guest today says sanctions are not the answer and that no resolution to the nuclear issue is possible unless the Western powers are willing to accept that basic fact. Hossein Mousavian should know he was Iran's former lead negotiator with the West on nuclear issues. He's also a man who's worked in the past with very, very top Iranian officials, both presidents and other political figures in Iran. He's author of a new book, The Iranian Nuclear Crisis, a memoir, came out earlier this month. Now, he was arrested on espionage charges a few years ago, tied to his nuclear role back in 2007. He was cleared of those charges. Today, though, he's in the U.S. He's a visiting research scholar at Princeton University, and that's where he joins us from right now. Good afternoon. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon.
I want to talk about nuclear, obviously, concentrate on nuclear, but I want to ask you, these espionage charges, you were arrested for basically espionage and revealing secrets to the West. Like I said, you were cleared of those charges, but you were barred from serving in Iran's diplomatic corps for 5 years. You've been described as an opponent of President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad's foreign policy and his nuclear policy. Is your relationship to the regime still sort of an adversarial one today? What is your relationship to the president?
No, as far as I received a judiciary verdict to be deprived for 5 years from diplomatic posts, then I decided to spend these 5 years on my academic works, and that's why I'm here at Princeton for my postdoctorate, doing researches and teaching here at Princeton.
But at this point, that 5-year period is technically over. Could you return right now to Iran if you wanted to and retain and resume your former role?
My judiciary case was over in April 2008. I stayed in the country even 1 year after my judiciary verdict. There is nothing legally against me. I always could go back, but as far as I have been deprived from diplomatic works, then I decided to stay here and do my academic works. This ban would be finished April 2013.
So maybe you'll go back when he's out of power, if he's out of power. Let's turn to the nuclear issue. We saw the latest round of talks was in Moscow. They yielded really no real progress. Now, you have said in the past that reciprocity, that's the word you've used, is the key to these talks. And you have said the West has asked basically for diamonds from Iran, but it has offered only peanuts in return. Can you explain what you mean by that?
Actually, in negotiations in Moscow, the West was asking Iran first to stop 20% enrichment, second, to give up the stockpile of 20% enriched uranium, third, to cooperate with the IAEA at the level which the IAEA, International Atomic Energy Organizations, they require. They require Iran to implement additional protocol, to implement subsidiary arrangements. This was the third demand. And the fourth demand of the P5+1, world powers plus Germany, was Iran to agree to cooperate with the IAEA on the IAEA's possible military dimension issues. These were the four major demands.
Aren't those reasonable? Aren't those reasonable demands?
Hold on. On the fourth issue, for Iran to cooperate with the IAEA on the possible military dimensions, it means Iran would have to give access beyond additional protocol, beyond NPT, to the IAEA.
I just want to
But
just hold on. I'm
the
sorry.
positive issue.
NPT, when you say that, that's the Non-Proliferation Treaty for our viewers, and that is a treaty which Iran is a signatory of.
Right. In negotiations in Moscow, Iran was positive and ready to cooperate with the P5+1 on all 4 major issues they were requesting Iran. In response, Iran had also 2 demands: to recognize the rights of Iran for enrichment, like other members of NPT, on their non-proliferation treaty NPT, like the enrichment facilities activities France has, Germany, Brazil, Argentina, like other members. And the second demand was for gradual lifting of sanctions. Unfortunately, Europeans and Americans, they were not ready to cooperate on these 2 demands of the Iranians, while Iranians, they were ready to cooperate on all 4 major demands of the P5+1.
Let me just ask you something, not to get bogged down in too much detail, but on the enrichment issue, this number of 20% enrichment, why does Iran, if it says it has nothing to hide, it's not building a weapon, why do you have to enrich to 20%? Could you just explain that? Do you really need that much enrichment for peaceful nuclear purposes?
Actually, this was a mistake by the Western countries, because in February 2010, Iran proposed the P5+1 to provide Iran for Tehran research reactor, the fuel rods Iran needed for Tehran research reactor. Tehran research reactor is a nuclear reactor built by Americans in 1967. And nowadays, Iranians, they need fuel rods. And you know, the isotopes produced in this facility is used for about 1 million of Iranians, which they have cancer. This is medical consumption, definitely.
Okay.
That time, the Western countries, they rejected Iran demand. Iran was asking to stay at the enrichment level of 3.5%. Iran was not going to go to 20%. Iran didn't want to go to 20%. But because the Europeans and Americans, they rejected Iran to provide the fuel rod, then Iran had to go to 20% enrichment in order to produce fuel rods.
You're saying, fine, Iran, you're suggesting that perhaps Iran had no choice. I want to ask you about this issue of sanctions, though. Right now, you've suggested the sanctions are hurting the Iranian people. They're not really impeding any of the progress in Iran's nuclear enrichment program. But surely there has been some impact, as well as the recent cyber attacks on Iran's nuclear equipment.
Definitely, the cyber war against Iranian nuclear facility is internationally illegal. I'm sure this would have some side effect, negative effects on the progress in Iranian nuclear facility. But the IAEA report proves Iran had been able to recover immediately and continue the progress. This is on the cyber war. Second, on the sanctions, definitely sanctions, they have been harmful to Iran, mostly to Iranian nation, to ordinary people. But whether the sanctions would make Iran to change its nuclear program, definitely not. I mean, Iran would not change its nuclear program because of sanctions. This is the issue. And more important, today, Europeans, Americans, international community, the IAEA, they have consensus that Iran doesn't have nuclear bomb. Iran has not decided to make nuclear bomb.
They say not yet.
And there is no evidence for diversion toward nuclear program.
Are you not worried?
Therefore, there is no legitimacy for sanctions.
Sir, but are you not worried about when you hear, say, Israel warning it's running out of patience, it's even threatening that it could strike Iran militarily to prevent it from getting a nuclear weapon, even if it doesn't have it yet?
I'm worried. Definitely, I'm worried. This would be a big mistake. This would be catastrophic for the whole Middle East and for all countries involved in negotiation. Definitely, the consequences would be beyond Middle East. This would be a disaster. Definitely, I'm worried. But here is the problem. Israel is not member of nuclear proliferation treaty. Israel possesses nuclear bomb. Iran is member of NPT. Iran is cooperating with Atomic Energy Organization, and Iran does not have nuclear bomb. Therefore, this is not legal, illegitimate to threaten a member of NPT which doesn't have nuclear bomb exclusively by a country which possesses nuclear bomb.
Sir, final question to you. We're running out of time. There's one thing I don't quite understand. You were arrested by this regime. You were cleared of the charges, but they called you a spy and accused you of revealing the secrets to the West. I would imagine you'd be really furious at this regime, and yet through this interview, it seems that you defend the Iranian line on nuclear policy. Why?
No, first of all, my problem was not with the whole system. Not only moderates, majority of conservatives, and even the judiciary, they believed I was innocent. Majority of the system, they believed I was innocent and they were supporting me. My problem was with a part of the system, exclusively with the president. But at the end, it came clear that I was innocent and all charges, they were baseless. But my issue is this. The nuclear program, believe it or not, is a matter of consensus and national pride in Iran. It doesn't matter if Ahmadinejad is president or Khatami is president or Rafsanjani. That's why I believe the West should recognize the legitimate rights of Iranian nation under NPT and try to resolve the problem peacefully.
Hossein Mousavi, and unfortunately we have to leave it there. I think you got your point across very well, and I thank you for your time today on an issue that seems to be at a stalemate. The Iran's nuclear standoff with the West doesn't seem to be any resolution in the near term in sight. Thanks to all of you for watching the interview here on France 24.